Hello mold friends and welcome to the Whiskey Amateur Class channel, the channel for complete beginners and for not so much beginners. Today I have a very interesting topic for you, but before I jump right into it, let me pour a very fine dram. Today I am tasting a Glen Spey single malt whiskey that was bottled by Gordon and MacPhail. Gordon and MacPhail is an independent bottler, and today's topic is original bottlers versus independent bottlers. So, have you ever heard this term independent bottler? What does that mean? So, when I started my journey in the world of whiskeys, of course I saw that right away, and I was very curious, like, who is now the owner? Who is bottling this whiskey, for example? Why are there two different names? So I'm going to clarify you now this topic that basically you have to know as a whiskey connoisseur. And let me start by giving you a very simple definition. Original bottler means simply that it's bottled from the distillery, by the distillery itself. Independent bottler means, as the name implies, a whiskey that was bottled from a third party. Okay? This is super simple, but now let's think about this. Why would you, as a distiller or as a distillery, sell your whiskey to someone else and let them bottle the whiskey instead of you? Is there any, does it make sense, or why would you do that? Let's examine this from two different perspectives. So let's start with the original bottler, which is the distillery. So when you distill your whiskey, you put it into cask to mature, and you have to wait long years before you can bottle the whiskey and sell it. So the cash flow, the incoming cash flow, is somewhere in the future. So basically you have a dead stock for many years. So this is the first and very interesting aspect: liquidity. Also, strictly related to this is the sales risk. So you distill something today, and who knows, can you sell that in 15 years? Like, is there going to be interest or demand or interest for the whiskey in 15 years? You don't know. Maybe there will be again alcohol prohibition, so there's a huge sales risk attached to this. Secondly, when you have many costs, you have to warehouse them. So you have to pay the rent, you have to pay the bills, the workers, and so on. So that's again a cost factor for many years. Thirdly, you have to pay insurance, because if you have a fire and your stock burns down, then you have a problem. Then, of course, it's a lot of money to have a bottling plant or to bottle your whiskey, and also the sales. These cost all money. So insurance, bottling, and sales. So the distribution line, this costs money for you. And finally, there could be also some casks that are just odd. You have a house style, you have a specific taste and flavor profile as a distillery, and you have some casks that are somehow, a bit different. So they are, the maturation process is going against your house style, and you don't necessarily want to have that, because you are mostly producing in a larger volume, and you have to have roughly the same product for several years. You don't want to have a different whiskey every year, because you won't be able to sell it, basically. And there are these costs that are basically a pain in the ass, so to say, because they are just a bit different. Okay. Now, imagine that an independent bottler, so a normal firm, comes to you and says, you know what, I'm going to buy the casks from you, and I'm going to pay cash for you right away. So see what I'm pointing to? So what happens? The distillery can sell the cask right away. They don't have to wait for 10, 12, 20, and so on years they can literally say right away to into the independent bottler, they have the cash flow, they don't have the sales risk because they already sold the casks, they don't have to warehouse those casks, they don't have to pay insurance on those casks. And if for whatever reason these casks that are a bit different from the others, you have some of that in your warehouse, you can basically sell it, okay? And you have the cash flow right away. So you do want to have these incoming cash flows, obviously. So we saw now the first part, or one angle of this topic, the distillery view or the original bottler view. But why would you as an independent bottler buy these casks? Well, there are two good reasons. First of all, you don't need a distillery. You basically have a firm and you can buy a whiskey and you can sell it on your own. So you don't have those fixed costs basically that a distillery has, but you can still, be in the whiskey business. And second, when you buy those casks that are usually, not older casks, but usually independent bottlers buy casks that are filled with the new make spirit, the beginning, so to say, and you get it for a good price. And you can sell it later with a good premium or with a good margin. But of course, you remember that there is a lot of risks. So you buy it for a cheaper price, but you have to take the risk, that is that whiskey going to be good in 12 years? Can you sell it? You have to pay insurance it, you have to warehouse it, and. So you see that, it's a trade-off basically. Also for the distillery, because when they sell the cask right away at the beginning, then they cannot pay it for the full market price. They always have to sell it with a discount, So you see there's a risk reward going on here. One more thing to the independent bottlers. So this is not regulated by law, and there are basically, to my understanding, three main types of independent bottlers. The first one is when you just buy the new make spirit and you have your own casks and you fill it and you mature it. The second type is that when you buy already the whole casks from the distillery and you do a finishing. So you put the whiskey in a different cask to finish it, to give an additional maturation profile. And the third one is when you buy the casks and you let it mature for many years, and you sometimes in the future sell it. So there are different types of independent bottlers. Okay, now I think you already have a good understanding. So basically, to summarize it a bit, if you are an OBs or an original bottler, you are trying to be bigger, you have a volume. And if you're an independent bottler, you can be a niche player. You are much smaller. You can experiment a lot with the casks and do some funky stuff, that you as a big distiller, you cannot really do, okay? Because if you have some special casks, you always have to do special marketing for that, like you need a separate marketing line for that. And that's, again, a lot of money, okay? So you cannot do that. You have 100 different types of whiskey because that's a lot of marketing and a lot of PR. But as an independent bottler, you are smaller, you can play around, and whiskey connoisseurs are hunting these, because some of the standard bottlings that everybody knows. But imagine that you have some whiskeys that are from that distillery, but with an additional cask finish or with some twist in it, It makes the whole industry much more interesting. And this is why I always say that this is a win-win-win situation, because the distillery benefits from this, the independent bottler benefits from this, and we, whiskey connoisseurs, benefit from this. So you don't have to see them as adversaries. They are basically complementary in this playing field, okay? Complementary, and the independent bottlers are kind of an extension of the distilleries. Yeah, so Nowadays, for most of the distilleries, this is part of their business model. So one portion of their whiskey is going to independent bottlers, because these independent bottlers are basically their customers, a group of customers. Yeah, so there's no competition basically, but they are, you know, complementing each other, which is just great. Yes, and here let me give you some big names, some big independent bottlers that you might have already seen. So the big ones are Signatory Vintage, Gordon MacPhail, I'm coming to this in a second, Cadenhead, Douglas Lang, Hunter Lang, and so on and so forth. There are several hundreds of them, mostly in Scotland and in England, so in the UK, but also there are some in Germany and basically all over the world. Yeah, so let me know if I forgot anything related to this topic. I would love to hear your comments. And now let me do a flash review. So, this whiskey was distilled at Glanspaigh Distillery, but it was bottled from Gordon MacPhail. So what happened here is that Gordon MacPhail bought some casks from the Glanspaigh Distillery and they recasked them. So they use an additional finishing, which in this case is a 3 years maturation in red wine, French red wine casks. So this is why you see this wonderful color. This is natural color and it's bottled with 45% alcohol by volume, and it has not been chill filtered. So this is a 12-year-old expression that was distilled in 2009 and distilled just now. Yeah, so very nice. By the way, the first maturation was in bourbon barrels, and then Gordon MacPhail put that into for 3 years in red wine, French wine casks. So very nice, and I love wine maturation in general. You can see here the label basically. So you see that Gordon MacPhail, this very nice bottle, this very nice packaging. And here you see all of the details. So wonderful presentation, very transparent presentation. And Gordon MacPhail, those guys who work at this independent bottler, they really know what they are doing. So you might pay a premium on this, but you can be assured that the quality is just top notch. Glanspaigh has a very delicate style. So it's not like punchy like some Islay or Campbelltown malts, but it's really subtle, very gentle. You really have to search for the aromas, which is good, you know, because it's a bit challenging. We love that, right? So there is a wonderful fruity nose there. And these fruits are wild berries like strawberry, raspberry, and so on. This is due to the very nice wine cask maturation. There is also some very nice vanilla, but not that sweet vanilla, but a really nice creamy vanilla. Some toasted oak, touch of milk chocolate, I would say. Let me try it on the palate. Medium bodied. There is some citrusy flavor profile going on. Very nice oaky flavors. It's really gentle. The nose comes through, berries are there. Finish is long, finish is relatively smooth. It's a superb whiskey, really. Let me just read what they've wrote on the label, because Gordon MacPhail usually provides tasting notes, which is very useful. So they wrote strawberry aromas complete with vanilla and rose petals. Sweet raspberry flavors complement with orange and toasted oak. A medium-bodied finish of lingering summer berries. Yeah, so I pretty much picked up these aromas, so I do agree with this very nice description. Also, the color is just lovely. You know, it's a very nice expression. Glens Pay Distillery is, by the way, located in the Speyside region. So they usually, tend to use a lot of sherry casks, but in this case, it was a bourbon cask. And with this additional red wine cask finish, it's just lovely. So thanks a lot for watching. And as I said, if you have anything to add to the independent bottler topic, feel free to do so. And I will see you soon with the next episode. Take care. Bye bye.